must be
Okay, a very warm
provider.
welcome back. We're in Santa today and we're talking about a very emotive subject, I would say, and that's higher education, people seeking education post-matric and also getting the skills that they need to find work and also training as well. We've got businesses that are challenged because they've got positions, they've got jobs, but they're not finding the right people. And if we need to grow our country at the rate that we need, 5% plus, we're going to need to skill our country as best as we can. And so we've been discussing that and getting questions from floor, from various people. And let's go now actually to table number 26. Mario Landman is there. Mario?
Hi, good morning. Are there plans in place to improve ASITA accreditation and administration systems, making it more efficient in its processing of provider accreditations and learner certification? For instance, is it reasonable to wait 18 months for an accreditation or over 2 years for certification to take place?
Okay, Mario, thank you very much indeed. Table 27, Gustav van Rensburg.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nsimban. I specifically want to ask a question about private sector and the involvement in private sector, and I'm actually quite confused this morning because I heard confronting comments from the panel this morning, Mr. Nsimban, where you specifically said that you can't build the education system on the private sector, and we understand that, where some of the other panel members said that you need the private sector. But on the one side, my understanding is almost, or my feeling is, that you want the private sector as workplace providers, and that's that. I'm representing a little company called SkillsPro, and we mainly focus on ICT training, are accredited by various SETAs. On the one side, also the MICT SETA. And I really want to ask you, can you please explain to us what is the real position with private or small private training providers in this whole environment of training where we cannot, and that's a fact, get any business from the SETAs anymore, because if we talk to them, if we give the SETAs proposals, they specifically directly tell us, no, all business go to FET colleges and universities. Thank you.
Okay, and then Siviwe is on table number 15.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My question is, maybe it's a little bit outside, but it's still within the education. I just want to know, how does the department plan to work with the basic department to identify talent early and try to streamline the young people in terms of careers that they will take? Because I feel that after matric, it's a little bit too late to identify talent. And I think if the talent can be identified earlier, it will contribute to the innovation in the country. Thank you.
Okay, so talent identification earlier on, and career guidance keeps coming up time and time again. I got no career guidance. I ended up as an accountant and now I'm sitting here. So it's quite interesting. But let's go to Leanne, who's in studio, who's got a question as well that she'd like to pose that's come through from the audience. Leanne?
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Peter. Lots and lots of questions and comments coming in from our viewers here this morning. As you mentioned, as we came back to you, this is one of those very, very, I suppose, spoken about conversations, and it's quite a tricky one. Let me try and get through as many as I can. Here is one. Many people talking about the fact that they are victims of having degrees and still not being able to find jobs, and they're unemployed. Here's one from Kopedi saying, can you please ask the minister, is it possible that I can do 2 to 3 internships because of a lack of permanent jobs in our country? That's one of the questions from Kopedi. This is another one, Karabo, saying, TVET-nated students, how are diplomas obtained? After 18 months of studying, then apply for a job or employed while studying? That's one of the questions there as well. Moss Matty saying, let employers increase on their contribution to skills levy, so to tap on those rare skills that are really needed by SOEs. There's one of them. There's perhaps something to talk about. Marilele Maluleke saying, I'm a learner doing an artisan development program funded by a SETA, but we have not been paid for 3 months as we speak. Now that's a bit worrying, that really is. Here's another one. Langa Tobajane writing in and saying, Sekhukhune College in Limpopo, it stood closed for years. What is the minister doing about such institutions? So, Minister, there's lots and lots of food for thought there coming in from our viewers. And here's another one. Here we go, let me try. Get this tongue around it. Tlotliso writing in and saying, if education is a priority for the administration, they should fork out 51 billion rand for higher education, not government parastatals money. All right. Well, there you go. So there are lots more. Whenever you want to come back to us, please do, Peter. There really, really are so many comments coming in this morning.
All right, Sian, thank you very much indeed. So quite a number of questions. I'm going to ask you to rapid fire the answers. The first one, simple accreditation. How can we make this process simpler? I don't know when to pick that up.
Well, Peter, there is a council for trades and occupation, which is responsible for accreditation. Of course, they work closely with SETAs because over the years, the SETAs have developed the experience and expertise. It shouldn't take 18 to 24 months, as the speaker asked. It's a short process. Firstly, you do get provisional accreditation whilst you work towards full accreditation. And secondly, once you have your accreditation, you have a scope to work with other SETAs. So I would probably be the first one to say, yes, it used to take a long time, but now we're speeding up that process.
Okay. Second question, private sector workplace training providers. They're being turfed away and saying this training is only going to be done by the TVET colleges.
No, that's not correct. I'm glad I get a chance to clarify this. The private sector has a very important role to play in skills development. The point I was making was that what was happening before was that SETAs were almost spending more than 90% of their money through private providers, whilst we had a weak college system. In fact, there is no country that can develop its skills properly unless you also build a large and diverse college sector, just to make an example. That does not mean that private training providers do not have a space. Many of them still benefit and work with the SETAs, by the way, as I speak now. That's a fact. We have not said to the SETAs, don't work with private providers. We're just concerned about the imbalance and say, some of the SETA money, by the way, I had opposition at some stage, and I'm repeating it because I'm quite convinced. Some of the SETA money must go to build the TVET college system so that we are able to supply the skills in a sustainable way. By the way, the public system also, its advantage is that it makes you precisely to reach these millions of unemployed young people who are poor.
All right. So have some of the SETAs then misunderstood the message from Minister?
No, it's not coming from SETAs. I think, and I agree with the Minister, the message has never been that we will never deal with private providers. In fact, to the contrary, we now have a good mix of private providers as well as the public providers. We are working very closely with TVET colleges. I think earlier there was a question from the floor about the placement of TVET college graduates and students. All the SETAs are now working closely with TVET colleges. We are now opening in almost all colleges what we call centers of excellence. I think for those of you who may be aware, in KwaZulu-Natal, the wholesale and retail sector, CETA is working with 4 colleges, which has now taken on 500 young people, training them through programs which the 5 large companies have come together with the colleges. They put together the curriculum, the lecturers have been trained, and the young people who are going through those programs have been assured employment at the end of their training. So we almost have to turn the system on its head and make sure that right from the onset, when young people come into the college, there is also that developed partnership with the TVET colleges. For instance, yesterday I was in Cape Town, in Pero, in the Northlink College. We've opened what we call a retail simulation center. Right in the college, there's a classroom that looks and feels like a store. So as young people are training on those programs, they get exposed. But next to the college, there is also a big shop right where they will get their training, and they've been assured of employment when they finish the program.
All right. The other question was early talent identification. It's an interesting one for me. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and one of the things that they were doing at the time was, they called it streaming, but it was they identified quite early on who was going to go to university eventually and who probably wasn't. And we were streamed differently, and those that went the university route went through school in that way, and then the others were guided towards apprenticeships and learnerships and so on and so forth. Even at school, even before we'd left school, you were quite clear of what kind of career path you were going to have. And I wonder if that isn't the question that's being asked, that perhaps we need to relook at our entire education system so we identify earlier on in the system before it's too late.
Well, thanks, Peter. Look, the skills mismatch in the country is as a result of, lack of career counseling, lack of career guidance. And I think what the gentleman is raising is already we are already doing it. We're working with the Department of Basic Education. We're visiting schools, trying really to disseminate information and to prepare our youngsters, especially your grade 9 to grade 12 learners, and channel them on the right career pathways. So we are doing this work there is an advocacy program that we are leading with the Deputy Minister of Basic Education. But also we have a partnership with the SABC where we are talking to youngsters every day through the 10 radio stations, including the Afrikaans one, where we are really having, career advisors giving proper career advice to the learners. But I must indicate that, look, we have one education system in the country, but the President decided in 2009 to split the 2 departments so that there is direct focus, or rather specific focus on both the schooling system and the post-school system. But we continue to have one education system, so the 2 departments are talking to each other, and we are working in a coherent fashion. But we'll have to obviously, elevate this work. We'll have to, put more, efforts to try and just build on the emphasis that it is good to actually prepare well on time so that you are able to get into the correct career path.
All right.
Maybe a quick addition, Peter, to what the Deputy Minister has said, because it's an important issue that is being raised. We are working with the Department of Basic Education also to look at pathways for students. The one big weakness thus far with our system has been that we're channeling everybody through the academic route. You do matric, you go to university. If you don't go that route, you are a nobody in society. Even the pressure we are putting as a country, by the way, on our matriculants, I don't know of any other country in the world that does what we do around matric results, putting so much pressure on youth on essentially one path. And we are working at diversifying, identifying early kids who have got different kinds of inclination, vocational orientation, and so on, so that we are able to really cater for the skills needs of the country rather than this one narrow route which we inherited from our past colonial master, Britain, in essence. You know, we have to change that completely. So it's a very important matter.
Okay, graduate unemployment is a big problem. Talking about 2-3 internships because of the lack of permanent employment. What can we do about that? I'm going to ask you, Mr. Kobe.
Yeah, I think also we need to be able to look at the small business sector. You know, and I'm confident that with the country having set up a Ministry of Small Business Development, that we can begin to focus more on creating new businesses, because with small business, they are able to absorb even more people, you know, and also we need to move people towards entrepreneurship, you know, so that we don't just direct young people, you know, to simply go to school to be employed. And how do we turn people, you know, towards self-employment and train people towards that? So it may be prudent for sitters as we move towards the NSDS for perhaps to begin to also look at SMME development and how we can create more opportunities for young people to be absorbed, you know, in the small business sector as entrepreneurs.
All right, so here's a question for, I think, Minister and also you, Mr. Dukole. Employers must be forced to pay more skills levy. But that isn't the problem, though, is it? I mean, the money comes in, and they're quite happy to pay it, but they're not using it in the way that it's intended. Mr. Dukole and also Minister?
Well, I mean, employers pay 1% of their payroll towards a skills levy. But what we have also learned through our own research is that most companies actually spend more than 1% on skills developments. So they have other initiatives that they are doing, which often we do not take into account. For instance, sitters have a lot of non-sponsored programs which they have to quality assure. So it's more than the 1%. I think when it comes to the 1% that comes to sitters, 80% of which we look after, that money is paid back to companies on condition that we get proof that there has been training. So if companies don't submit reports, they will not get the money. And the balance that we use for discretionary programs, that's where we need most companies to actually come in and benefit. And I think what Mr. Kubeka has said is correct. We need to get more small companies that are already on the system to actually also tap into these funds, because currently it's mostly large and medium companies that are tapping into the discretionary funds. So we need more small companies.
But Minister, there are some companies that will pay out the levy but are not claiming it back by doing these programs.
Not only that, they've also just say, once we've paid, that's fine. The sitters will see what they do with that money, and they don't open up their own workplaces for training, which is what we are trying to encourage. That don't use the levy to say, then I have fulfilled my duty. A levy is just part, it's a necessary but not sufficient, you know, a role that employers can be able to play. By the way, this issue of the levy, as it is raised here, also arises in the context of the question that has been posed. Are South African employers contributing enough to education and training? That is the debate that has actually been raised, in whatever way. I know COSATU, for instance, is arguing very strongly that this levy has been at 1% for a long time. Maybe we need to consider increasing. There's a debate, part of the debate that actually has got to be engaged in. And I know some are saying maybe to try and solve the problems of NSFAS, raise the levy, and then we take a lot of that money into NSFAS. But it's part of this debate on the role of the private sector in a developing country that has got such huge challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment.
And there was a question that was raised by Leanne earlier. Somebody said that, is it Sekokuni? institutions that have been closed for years. How do we have that situation playing out, if it is true, when we have dire need for learning institutions?
Well, the ANC as the ruling party took a resolution in Mangaung in 2012 that all your former colleges of education, for instance, and other colleges that are just lying unused must be taken over by our department and be turned into centers of training, whether it's campus colleges or university campuses and so on. We are in the process of doing an audit, but of course, the challenge is money, because there are many colleges and institutions that we are offered. Some of them, by the way, which were being used by the army in some instances, no longer.
I think
I don't know why I talk about the army and then they
yeah, exactly.
Sabotage.
So it's work in progress that we are doing. So we agree with the sentiment that we should be able to be using these buildings to provide for training and education that we so need in our country.
All right. Mr. Kubega, I don't know if you can answer for this poor person. He says he's doing this artisan training, but he hasn't been paid for 3 months. And I just wonder what might be the challenges with some of the employers that we're in this situation. And maybe Mr. Degole, you can chip in maybe.
No, I don't think it's acceptable that young people go through training and they don't get paid. I think this is an issue that requires a particular C10 employer to resolve. But often we find that, providers do take on young people before they have finalized contractual arrangement for the money to flow, because we do not release funds unless there is an agreement as to how long the training or the internship is going to be. So I think it's one of those that needs to be taken directly with the SITA consent.
We're going to get some more questions from studio just now, but before that, just a couple from the floor here. Let's start with Ernest Wayner, table number 2.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name's Ernest Wayner. I'm from Ekurhuleni, particularly from Brakpan. And my question to the Minister is, why doesn't Ekurhuleni have a university? We have a population of 3.2 million people. We have no tertiary school at all. Our kids, we've got 700,000 unemployed youth people, according to the Minister, according to the Mayor, and it's a matter of access. What I've noticed, I'm trying to promote the university in Brakpan, and I've done a study on it, and I'd like to present it to you, that so that you could see the benefits of why it is in Brakpan. We have infrastructure already of 3.5 billion rand in place. Brakpan is in the center of Ekurhuleni, so that students we don't have to provide accommodation. Kids come in the day and go home at night. Kids come in the day, they go home at night. They learn like the cost would be much less. The other thing is that Brakpan is right in the center of Ekurhuleni. It would be very easy by transport to come daily. There's even a train system which runs from right through Ekurhuleni. The other thing is that I've contacted the Department of Higher Education, and Dr. Diane Parker has come back to me saying that Gauteng has sufficient, and that Ekurhuleni in particular has one campus from 26, I might add. The 26 are in Pretoria and in Johannesburg. Only one is in Daveyton, which only can accommodate 3,000 people. So why are we different? Our children are also, we pay the taxes in this country. In fact, the mayor boasts that Ekurhuleni is the hub of the trade capital of of Africa, in fact, he says, because we've got an airport there, but we don't have one university to educate our children.
All right.
Thank you very much.
I think I'm going to ask you to answer that before we go on further, because he's quite passionate about this. And I would imagine that there are many other areas around the country that are raising the same question. Why isn't there a university near us?
In fact, the culprit is in this room. Well, one of the culprits, the Vice Chancellor of the Valley University of Technology, VUT. We have agreed, we have given this task to UNISA and the Valley University of Technology to look at building a comprehensive, well, it will start as a campus first. We hope in future it will have to grow into a university. You don't have to motivate. We agree with you 100%.
All right.
And work has started.
So the $1 million question, timeline. When can he expect to see progress on this?
Well, the culprit wants to answer, hopefully briefly, if you allow that.
Okay.
There's the Vice Chancellor.
Where's the VC?
Professor Mutlana.
There we go. Prof,
thank you so much, Mr. Minister, and thank you so much, a concerned citizen. We definitely have made tremendous inroads into establishing a university campus at the Davidton. Currently, we've got a task team working on joint utilization of space, and we've got programs going on from UNISA and also from the Valley University of Technology. And the Valley University of Technology is one of those universities who really are for technology transfer, innovation, and the location where we are located is within the Davidton campus will, I think, really be able to so be positioned to answer all the concerns you've done.
VC?
We are already there as we speak.
So
my students are in class.
When is it opening?
It's open.
Is it open?
Yes.
So this question is redundant. Is that
We
what
have
we're
not
saying?
perhaps marketed it, but the students as we speak are in class.
Yeah.
But we have got land much more than that.
So we're talking about scale. So we've started and we're scaling up. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Malebo's got an interesting question that I'll come up to the back of. Malebo, table number 5.
Hi, my name is Malebo. I've just returned from England. I've been living there for the last 14 years. So I am actually seeking employment. My background is in social sciences and international relations. So my other question has been answered because it was regarding funding for PhD. And I wanted to know whether it is accessible, but from what the minister said, it is. I should be looking into it. And the second one is, where are women in the panel?
Okay, let's start with the easy question. And that's funding for PhDs, because that's a big thing. Minister Naledi Pandor has been crying for PhDs. Your institutions of higher education need 75% of university staff to have PhDs. Currently, we're only sitting at 34%. So if we don't have PhDs teaching, we can't create more PhDs, I guess is a challenge. The University of São Paulo has 98%. We're sitting at 34%, and we're similar to Brazil. How do we fund PhDs? How do we create more PhDs? Because if we're going to create more, if we don't, we're going to fall behind in terms of our NDP objectives. And then the panel, I don't know how to answer that one.
No, I know how to answer that one. Your criticism, interestingly enough, when we were sitting in the holding room, we were noticing that this is an all-male panel. And I think that the organizers, not us, we are not to blame. The organizers must make sure that, Peter, we do have a panel where there must always be the organizers of this are women, but there is no women on the panel.
Well, are we saying we should have a female deputy minister? I don't know.
That's up to the president.
Yeah. No, but it's a valid criticism. We accept it. On the PhDs, on our side as the Department of Higher Education and Training, we've started now upscaling. We just finalized a very comprehensive staffing plan for universities because our academics are aging. We are tackling the issue from that angle. Average age of a South African academic today is 55 years. And if we don't do anything, in 10 years' time we'll be in a serious crisis because the situation is not self-correcting. That is why then we are making this intervention that we're going to be putting in more money. Already we've managed now to get 149 million rands that we are directing to PhDs so that we are able to increase. And the way we are doing it is that if we have then given you money, a bursary to go and do a PhD for 3 years, you will come back and teach for 3 years at the university. Hopefully many will stay for longer. But also we are now creating entry-level academic posts because it's of no use to train PhDs and they have no posts at the universities. We are creating posts at the universities so that we are able to absorb these PhDs. Our intention also is to raise more money and even send a lot of these PhD students overseas as well, because we do not have enough supervisory capacity in South Africa in our universities. So we are planning to be sending more. So we've got a very big plan, and we are starting to implement it this academic year to begin to draw in. Of course, the humanities one is a slightly different program, but again, we have never, I don't remember ever taking so many PhDs in one program. Like 150 last year, it's going to be another 150 this year. I think it's another 150 next year. Of course, the Department of Science and Technology is the lead department in terms of generally your PhDs. And we are engaging, we are working together with Minister Pando on this question because we really do need PhDs. It's unfortunate, Peter, without taking any more time, that because of the demand at lower levels, entry to universities and colleges, we've forgotten the foundation of education. It's at the higher level. If you don't produce PhDs, your education system is not sustainable.
Okay, we're running out of time, but there is one important question. Jacob Peary tweets, how does the minister ensure that only committed students enter these TVET colleges? There's a massive number of dropouts each year, and it's not just TVET's university as well. How do we manage this? Is it because they're not committed, or perhaps basic education needs to better prepare for these students? I don't know. Where are we?
It's a mix of reasons. I hope as many teachers are watching this program, school teachers. Because quite a number of them, if a student is not coping at school, they say go to a TVET college. A TVET college is not a dustbin where you throw away students that you think they are not performing. We want good students at the TVET colleges who are vocationally oriented, who are bright. It's not like a throwaway. So if we can try and work with our teachers to convince them, and that is career guidance. Part of our programs for TVET colleges and universities is to improve learning and teaching all the time.
All right. Unfortunately, we run out of time, but I think we're getting the gist of that particular answer, but something that we certainly have to address. As I said, we always run out of time with these, but I just want to thank our guests, Dr. Bladen Zimande, the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Deputy Minister Duduzi Milana, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Xolani Qubega, Secretary General, Bank Business Council, and Mr. Joel Dechole, Chairperson of the CETA Forum. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution and sharing your thoughts with us this day. To our audience here in Sandton, thank you so much for joining us, and for you at home, it's been a pleasure getting your tweets and also hearing your thoughts as well. We'll see you at the next one. Have a great day, everyone, and go Bafana.